start the meeting. We're going to ask Councilwoman Calmer to give us an invocation. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilman Parker.
I'm going to ask everybody to bow their heads, but before I say the Pledge of Allegiance, I went and visited my son in New York City this week. So, or this past weekend. So I'm going to, before I do that, say a special thank you to our firemen and our policemen, because, wow, you really never realize how much disrespect there is out there for you guys. And we really appreciate what you do here. So thank you.
Thank you.
So if everybody will bow their heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here this evening, and thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you for everything we have in our city, and thank you for the very wonderful and many blessings that you bestowed upon all of us. And Father, give us the heart to see those things in that way. I ask that you'll be with us this evening to make the decisions that affect so many. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Please join the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to get started, so please, if you would, take this moment to silence your cell phones. Make sure that they are in the off or silent position. With that, I also ask that any member of the council or staff have an amendment to the agenda. Please.
Mr. Mayor, I ask that on the claims docket that we remove the item and denominate it separately for coastal development. I would suggest that that be made 10B. It'll be 10B, approval of coastal development. I have to recuse myself on that.
Anyone else?
If council does not, I have an amendment to remove item 6B. 6B.
Anything else? Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, community recognition, we start with the Mayor's Youth Council. Is anyone here from the Mayor's Youth Council? My man, how are you? Tell me your name, age, what school you go to?
My name is John Montalvo. I'm 16 years old and I go to Pascal High School.
All right. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Love it when you guys are coming on a regular basis. So stir up your other folks. Tell them, come on down and watch this. It's so much fun. You'll enjoy it. Can't wait till you're mayor. All right, tonight's business spotlight, RT Hut. I want to tee up the video now.
Are you ready to show off your school spirit or pass school pride? Head on over to RT Hut, located at 3125 Market Street near the intersection of Jackson Avenue. Owner Marissa Grant turned a hobby of personalizing items for friends and family members into a successful business that opened its doors in February of 2018. RT Hut specializes in custom shirts and tanks from comfort colors to baseball tees with a variety of screen print, vinyl, and sublimation designs. She also offers personalized gifts, accessories, decals, and much more that are perfect for birthdays, holidays, weddings, or a gift just because. RT Hut has one of the area's largest collections of apparel and gifts, celebrating our school and home Spirit. Stop by and see what RT Hub can make for you today.
So, thank you for doing business. You're Marissa, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you stand up, please?
Sure.
I want everybody to see. Because I wanted to say how well, how good of a job you do and how much we appreciate you doing business here in Pascagoula, number one, and number two, you guys have been pretty successful in the 18 months since you've started, and I just want to applaud you, and I want to ask everybody to go by and shop local with you, because we're going to do it, and my campaign's going to do it, and we're going to do some other things with you locally, and I just want you to know I appreciate you doing business here.
Thank you so much, and thank y'all for having me here tonight. I really
Yes,
appreciate it.
we appreciate, well, look, our job is to make you successful, so whatever we can do, we're here for you,
Yes, sir.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, we have a proclamation regarding the census. Councilman Fournette will read that for us.
The 2020 Census Complete Count Committee. Whereas the U.S. Census Bureau is required by the United States, the U.S. Constitution, to conduct a count of population and provides a historic opportunity to help shape the foundation of our society and play an active role in American democracy. And whereas the city of Pascagoula is committed to ensuring every resident is counted. And whereas federal and state funding is allocated to committees and decisions are made on matters of national and local importance based in part on census data and housing. And whereas census data helps determine how many seats each state will have in the U.S. House of Representatives and is necessary for an accurate and fair redistricting of state legislative seats, county and cities, councils, and voting districts. And whereas the information collected by the census is confidential and protected by law. And whereas the city of Pascagoula, Mississippi Complete Count Committee will work with the Census Bureau to strive for an accurate count. And whereas the city of Pascagoula, Mississippi Complete Count Committee will bring together a cross-section of community members who will utilize their local knowledge and expertise to reach out to all persons of our community. Now, therefore, I, Dane Maxwell, Mayor of the city of Pascagoula, Mississippi, establishes a 2020 Census Complete Count Committee to increase awareness and understanding about the 2020 census and encourage people to participate in the 2020 census. Adopted at the city of Pascagoula, Mississippi, 3rd day of September, 2019. I'm Dane Maxwell.
Okay, thank you for reading that. I'm gonna need a motion to ratify the proclamation.
So moved.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Scott is here to talk about the census and how important it is, and I'm gonna let you come up to the podium and say a few words. Show us what you got.
City of Pascagoula, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Lifelong resident of South Mississippi, grew up in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and I bleed Mississippi. In everything that I do. It's an honor to work with the Census Bureau and partner with the City of Pascagoula. If you have a minute or two, I'd like to go through the presentation real quick, just to give you the levity. The proclamation covers a lot of the major points, but there are some finite points that tend to get missed during the census process, and the new method in which we collect the census information will have a great impact on our communities and of course going forward for the next 10 years. The forming of the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee is very important. What's different in this year in Mississippi as in the past, Mississippi and Louisiana were both under the Dallas district. That district is now split, Dallas and Denver, and we have moved into the SEC, basically the southeastern region, which is Louisiana onto the eastern seaboard up to North Carolina. Next slide, please. The the U.S. Constitution states that we shall take a complete count every 10 years. The first census was taken in 1790. So it's our constitutional duty as citizens to respond to the census. One of the new things this year is our primary form of responding to the census will be online. So the faster that we respond, once we get our personal invitations for our household, the more money we'll save the taxpayers, because the less things we'll have to send out and the less follow-up we'll have to do as a Census Bureau and the Department of Commerce. Next slide. So, political power, yes, the census is constitutionally mandated for reapportionment for Congress. The census results are used for redistricting at the national, state, and local levels. If you so request that, then those lines may be redistricted, but all the information will be drawn and done according to census tracts. Money, economic impact, $675 billion a year to local and state governments by the federal government. That's not counting state funding or local funding. That is just money apportioned through the federal government. More than that is the fact that our schools, our Head Start allocations, our guaranteed payments or I guess subsidies, if you will, to our local citizens, all that, including veterans services, all that is allocated through numbers from the census. Next slide, please. What everyone should know is about fair representation and apportionment, and what that means is Mayor Maxwell's census means the same as any other person in this entire country. Everybody is equal in the census. We all have an equal voice. So that's it's the ultimate equalizer in the United States. It's also about redistricting and $675 billion a year. Let's break that down in the state of Mississippi. According to census numbers, that's over $2,000 per person for 10 years, times 10. Tragic story, the city of Biloxi believes that they undercounted their Vietnamese population by 4,000 people. Well, that's a lot of people. Okay, well, all right, so that's 8,000. No, that's $800,000 that the city of Biloxi lost because they didn't reach out into their minority communities or immigrant communities. Does not matter where they're from, who they are, or how they got here. It's irrelevant. We provide services for them as our local governments. We have to get out and count this population in our area because it's fair to everyone who's here. We all know the tragedy of losing $800,000 out of the budget. That's not fun. And that's where they believe that happened in Biloxi. Next slide, please. The apportionment of the United States House of Representatives is based on the 2010 census, and 2 seats. State of Louisiana may be losing in one estimation. Looks like Alabama may lose one this year. They're apportioning a lot of money and a lot of effort in the state of Alabama to be sure everyone gets counted so they don't lose a seat. Texas is they're poised to gain 2, maybe 3. 3, maybe 4, 4 to 2, maybe 3. So they're out trying to get those, so they'll have another vote in the House of Representatives, or 2 or 3. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about Pascagoula. Love Pascagoula. Spent a lot of time here, grew up here. But what I will tell you is we can do better in Pascagoula. The response rate for the United States is 72%, and the state of Mississippi is 70%. In 2000 and 69 in 2010, there was a lot of recovery in 2010 from a little event here called Katrina. A lot of still displaced citizens at that time. So some of this is attributed to that. That's why I use comparatives with the city of Goshen and the city of Ocean Springs. 69% and 67% in 2010, where Goshen was 72 and 73 in 2010. Ocean Springs in 2000 was 82, and in 2010, 71. There's a lot of different factors that go into that. And I'll tell you that the hardest population to count are 0 to 5-year-olds. And they probably mean the most go forward in the future. And there's no real one reason why. But the one answer is we're going to have to give more effort to try to get everybody counted, particularly in the 0 to 5-year-olds. Because that'll be projected for the next 10 years as to how many more children we have in our area, how many more Head Starts, how many more hospitals, how many more, even Burger King, whoever it is that's coming to your town, will be counted in that census. And those 0 to 5-year-olds are the basis of where the count starts out. Next slide, please. There are 3 tracks here in Pascagoula, census tracks. This gives you some breakdown. This is from a program called Roam. This is a program that any of us can have where you just hover over a census tract and it will give you this information and much more. I only used part of it, but it can tell you how many people have fast internet access and much, much more, as well as the median income, population under 5, as well as population below the poverty level, things like that in each of these. Now, I brought these maps up. This come over from Jackson County, our geographic department over there, which shows you your districts here in town. And the dark yellow are what's deemed to be a low response area. And that's a 26 to 28% of not responding on the first request for the Census Bureau. So you know your districts, you know where you're at there, and where it would be best to mostly focus our emphasis. And while I'm here, let me go ahead and say this. We're partnering with Jackson County. We've got a complete county committee working with them, and the Jackson and George Regional Library are doing a really good job of working with us, offering space. We've got training space for the ground game that's going on now, as well as we're going to have events. The City of Lucedale partnering with the Jackson George County Regional Library to have a census day where we invite the community to come in and answer the census there. Just some ideas going forward of some of the things that we're doing already here, but we're asking for your help with that too. Next slide, please. The key dates, here's the deal. For the most part, where are we at in time? We're in August. We've opened up our regional offices. There's one in Gulfport and one in Jackson. That's the only 2 offices the Census Bureau will have in the state. Address canvassing is going on now. We have contacted every single law enforcement agency in the United States so they know our people are out there, how to identify them, and what to do if you get a call. So just contact our local law enforcement agency. They have that information already in front of them. Address canvassing will go on until this fall. We will start our education phase in the fall. We have they call it robust media campaign coming out in the fall, and then in the spring will be the motivation phase, where in March we'll actually start sending out invitations to respond to the census. April 1st will be the official census day, and then in May, the enumerators will go out and go knock on doors. If you've not responded with over 4 times of being contacted, then we'll go out and count the people. Then on December the 31st of next year, we will report to the President of the United States the information that we have, and then he will send out redistricting recommendations to the Congress in the spring. Next slide, please. Census data is used in many ways. The train big here, as well as roads in Pascagoula, the future of transportation, hospitals, some of the other things that I mentioned, healthcare, education, social services, emergency response. All that is dependent on census information. The census is doing surveys at all times. Several different surveys. We actually give the information to the federal government for gross domestic product, for your housing, your income, your education. All the information the government gets, it all comes from the Census Bureau. So, to be honest with you, the Census Bureau knows we just need you to respond. So that's where that amounts to. Next slide, please. Privacy and confidentiality. The term in the Census Bureau is Title 13. Your privacy is protected by the Census Bureau, and it's never been, your privacy rights have never been defeated with the Census Bureau. Not even with the Patriot Act, through the Supreme Court, several challenges. Your information is private to the Census Bureau for 72 years. All these genealogy apps that are out there, they use Census Bureau information to solidify all the information they get. So also your Google Maps, address canvassing, they use our technology, the Census Bureau technology for all Google Maps and everything. So that's where address canvassing has gone so fast this year. We're over 70% done and we're only 2 weeks in. So next slide, please. Census Bureau will never ask for your social security number, money, donations, request on any political party. We are a apolitical organization. We will never request any PINs, passwords, or anything else. So anybody responding to that automatically know that will be a fraud. Census Bureau asks none of the personal information ever. Next slide, please. Again, all the different information we collect, geography levels, national, state, county, city, and place, tract, block, and congressional districts, as well as all the business information as well for your MDA grants. Everything is dependent on these census numbers. Next slide, please. We're gonna do it by phone or on the internet. It's gonna take about 10 minutes. It's gonna be simple, nothing complicated. There'll be more options than ever before for your ethnicity and your history and background. It's gonna be a very, very simple process. You'll just open your phone up, in 10 minutes you're done, and the census is completed. In 10 years, you won't even remember you did it. So it's gonna be a very expedient way to do it. We're gonna save the taxpayers about $400 million by doing our primary on the internet. If anyone has a problem with that as far as difficulty answering questions, they can call in. We'll have over 21 different languages available for people to call in and answer the census in several different languages as well. Next slide. Ultimately, the success will depend on everyone's participation. That's why we're here working with our highest elected officials in the city as influencers in our community. Next slide. Complete count committees. We have a proclamation for, and that's what we're going to be working forward with in the future to get further down in our communities and community events. Next slide. Now is the time. We are October the 1st, 6 months out. It's coming fast, and we will count them all. Just need to be prepared. That's the big thing. Next slide. The structure of the complete count committee, just for everyone's clarity, the highest elected officials or community leaders appoint chairperson. The chairperson will be the liaison, the main source of contact between myself and the city. And then the chairperson will collaborate with the highest elected officials or community leaders to select subcommittees, chairs, and chairs of the subcommittee. Next slide. The subcommittee chairs who are purpose-driven and result-oriented, they're going to be our nonprofit leaders, our religious leaders, our community leaders, even elected officials on those complete count committees. The trusted voices of our communities who we're looking for those CCCs. Next, please. Go ahead, next. Community-based CCCs. This is, in our area, very important because you have different industries, you have different ethnic backgrounds, whether it's fishing or industrial or whatever it is in our community. They're so diverse. This will be the heartbeat of our complete count committees. Next, please. Just some examples of subcommittees there. Next, please. All right. The response outreach area mapper. I've got folders for each of you. They'll have a sheet in there. This information, pull it up. It's public information for elected officials. It's really, really good to know where your population bases are and to get specific information in each of these tracks. But you all have access to that directly with this sheet. Next, please. All right, and this is how we will support you. A lot of people think, hey, the Census Bureau is going to come in and count everybody. We're here to support you in advance, and this is how. I will be here for local events. Anything you want to do with your complete count committee is to set up events. Constitution Day, September 26th, things like this, Veterans Day, where we can reach out into the community and help represent. We have information to pass out. We have jobs that are available. We will have more promotional items as we go further on towards April 1st of 2020. So rely on me for information, any information you need. I'll be happy to get for you in any way, shape, or form, and to be involved in your community events to help influence the rest of our community to get that complete count. All right, next, please. Most of this we already have through our libraries and private industry because a lot of really good relationships and great people, and just spread the word about the jobs. That's the biggest thing we can ask at this point. Next. And here's the information. You have access to this entire slideshow here. So if anyone needs jobs, you can send them to me, or you'll have this information here at the City Hall. Next, please. The goal of the 2020 census, to count everyone once and only once, and to count them in the right place. And I'll close by saying this one thing. The hard to count populations are our veterans. They're going to be our elderly. They're going to be couch surfers. Children that are between custody battles. Those are the hard to count populations. The 0 to 5-year-olds. We don't have a health department here. Lots of things are challenges to get those 0 to 5-year-olds. Really issue that tears at me. So think in those terms going forward as to who's not going to have readily access to, first of all, a stable home, second of all, internet access to respond to the census. And every bit of effort we put out, just like in an election, to get that last vote, to get that last person, they count for over $2,000 per person each year for 10 years. So it's worth it to, whether it's budget or whether it's energy or whether it's effort or whether it's another phone call to me, get that done and let's get a complete count for Pascagoula, because we can increase those numbers and increase the amount of money that you get to work with here in our communities. It's been an honor, gentlemen. Do you have any questions? And ladies, I'm sorry. If you have any questions of me, please feel free to ask, or from the public either.
Anybody? Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you again, Scott, for coming. I'm sure we'll be in touch. Next is there any commercial fishermen who use the point and who are concerned about cruising the coast activities here to speak? No one here to speak, okay. Next is the consent agenda.
Don't you think they're coming in from fishing? I mean, I know the guys that I know coming in from fishing. I did make it a point after I saw that post on Facebook to reach out to them. They're usually coming in at 6, so they probably weren't gonna make it to the meeting. I reached out to 3 that I knew.
Or do they long to the point?
Yes, they did.
Do they have a representative that can go?
Well, they're fishing, so,
A representative?
well, they work. I mean, their wives work, I mean, they're fishing.
Okay. Well, no one showed up, so we're on to the consent agenda. We are
I mean,
now,
I hate for us to dismiss it by saying no one showed up. They're working, they're fishing, and they come in after 6, so.
all right, duly noted.
Thank you.
We are now on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, city manager, city attorney, your turn.
All right, what you have before you is, or under my items is, let's see, 8A, and it says discussion regarding requests for proposals for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning maintenance services. I'm not asking y'all for any action tonight. Rather, based on conversations with myself and Ms. Turner and even Mr. Scruggs, we anticipate on Thursday night asking you for authority to put our current provider, Star Services, Inc. of Mobile, that we do not intend to renew the agreement. And by saying that, I just wanted to give you a background on why we potentially believe that to be our recommendation. The original contract for Star was on October the 9th of 2014. At that time, the contract allowed for it to continue to roll over year to year unless there was an intention or someone stating notice in writing within 30 days. The contract is set to renew again on October the 7th of this year. The current cost of that contract annually is somewhere just shy of $90,000. It has been incrementally increased ever since it began, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3,000. The rate schedule ended at year 5, which is what this current year is. So I can only anticipate that should we not opt out, then you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $92,000 annually. Now, when I say HVAC maintenance services, this covers every building that we have, any sort of HVAC system that you have. And this is something that Ms. Turner and I have talked about on more than one occasion. And then I guess the rubber kind of met the road last week. We were having issues primarily, notwithstanding other buildings, but with the library. And it seems like every time we get into whether or not something's covered under the contract, it's like pulling teeth to get something covered. So given the fact that y'all have went out for RFPs in an effort to try to obtain better services, what I would like for y'all to do is to basically just think about it, and that Mr. Scruggs and myself and Ms. Turner will look at putting together something to see if feasibly, if we put them on notice by the end of this week, that we will be able to get an RFP, and or if not, in conjunction with that, be able to deal with local vendors to maintain our systems until we get someone in here. It may be Star, it may be someone else, but we think that it would be practical at this point. That's the way we're leaning. So it's just to give you a heads up on Thursday at our budget hearing. If Jackie, myself, and Donovan think that it's doable, then we'll ask you for that authority. And in the interim, if you'd like for me to send to you the current agreement that we have with Star for your review, I absolutely can do that. But that's it. No action tonight, just a heads up that that's coming on Thursday, more likely not. Did I hit everything, Jackie? Pretty much.
All right, we good? Frank? All right, now we move on to the claims docket. Burrows.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the docket of claims with the prior exclusion I stated at the beginning of the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You
Make
gonna
a
take-
motion, we approve the coastal development claims docket.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right. All right, now, anybody else got anything?
I'll let Mr. Burrows back in.
Come on, Mr. Burrows.
Are we doing these mayor council items?
Yeah.
Okay, well, in the future, if we're going to, put things out there for the city citizens to come in here to talk to us about things, let's use some additional methods rather than Facebook, because we're only addressing one population. Everybody doesn't have Facebook regardless of popular belief.
I know,
See?
I know. But let me say this.
See, unless you were the one who directed that to be put on Facebook, you wouldn't have known it. And so the commercial fishermen didn't know it until I called them and asked them. So if I hadn't called them and asked them if they were coming, they would not even have known unless we had gone down to the point and put up something and asked them to be here tonight to speak. So we're boxing in one population and asking them to come to things at the city.
And they're
They
out
don't
there.
know. And they're
Where's
out
Karen
there.
Reed?
Sheila.
Okay, what would, when she's been down there all day, is there any boats at the point today, right now?
No, sir.
At
Miss
4:30, at 4:30 this afternoon, there was not one single trailer. I usually go by the point 2 or 3 times a day, and during the week, there's no more, I have never seen more than 7, and that was one day. There are lots of times on the weekends, I'm not talking about weekends, I'm just talking about Monday through Friday, and and most of them go out in the morning, they pass by my house, I know when they come and when they go. And I'm not a commercial fisherman, and I'm not trying to be an adversary, but I don't think it's a real problem.
All right, Frank, can we do something to get the word out more, like Jennifer's talking about? How do we do that?
Yes, we can, we will send our crews, I'll go out there myself and early one morning, and I'll hand out some flyers.
Well,
That's what the council would like.
Make it easy. I mean,
Well, if I would do all-
we've covered all our social media platforms. We've covered Facebook, and we played it on our website.
I can
So-
assure you these folks aren't using social media, but there are a couple of them are your neighbors.
Yeah, I know it, and I know when
I know,
they
but
go.
I can't go to everybody's house. What I'm trying to do is come up with a reasonable solution. Why don't
Early
you,
one morning and
or just take some signs, take $20 and put some signs up and say we want to need input, put them out at the point. There's 9 boat launches here besides that. Put them at each one of them.
It's just been recently that we closed the point for up to a year when we were doing our redevelopment, and they would have had that fresh in mind. I'm kind of a little lost about what this conversation is about, but
Well,
I know that
But
we
I
had.
bet that y'all put some signs up when you close the
Well,
point.
that's what I said, if I'm not mistaken, I think we put a sign out there on
And I bet you
on
gave them a little
barricade
notice.
and it said, you know, it will be closed 2 weeks.
I bet you didn't put it on Facebook. And I bet they didn't just show up one morning and boom.
I agree.
All right, so, are we good? All right, okay, all right. So if there's nothing else now, we need to go in executive session, so I'll need a motion to go in, to close this session, go into executive session.
So moved.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming tonight. We appreciate you coming out and visiting while we attend. Marissa, before you leave, can you come